Hey, everybody, welcome to today's episode of the What Worked For You show. Today, we're talking real estate, and my guest today is a specialist who's been at this for over 12 years now. He's worked with single family, he's worked with multifamily, wholesaling, flips, rentals, syndication. So he's seen a lot, he's touched a lot, but lately, he's been focused heavily on the virtual space, which has become a really hot thing in recent years. So I'm looking forward to diving into how this journey has looked for him as he's created success for himself. So, Chris Logan, how are you doing today? Thanks for being on.
Great. Thanks, Frank. Even better that I'm here on the show and looking forward to diving in and dropping some value for your audience here.
Wonderful. Well, let's start right away with you've got a big smile. And not only do you have a big
Thanks.
smile, and where I'm going with that is you're a very positive guy.
hmm
Now, real estate's a full contact sport, and there's no shortage of negativity in it. And
Oh,
and then
yeah.
that's not unique to real estate, right? And at the
hmm
time of this recording, we're in election season, so
hmm
emotions are flaring. But in a world full of negativity, and there's just so much distraction, whether it's social media, in person, right? Just driving to work for some people is like an adventure and, staying positive. What's your secret to overcoming negativity on a consistent basis?
Great question. Great question. And it's funny that you asked this because there have been times where, because I'm so positive that it's actually annoyed certain people, right? And that's more of like their paradigm, their problem, not really my problem. Doesn't mean I don't have my up and down days. I have my bad days just like anybody else, right? But one of the beauties of that is that in free will is that we have the ability to focus on what we want to focus on, right? If we focus on all the negativity and everything's wrong, I firmly believe we're going to get more of that in our lives, right? And it's going to affect everything we do, all of our conversations, all of our results that we get. And guarding that is one of the most important assets as an entrepreneur, right? So on the flip side, if you focus on the positive and what went right, you focus on all of the potential, the future, where you're going. That definitely helps. And then obviously, my relationship with Christ is a really big thing. I lean back on certain verses in the Bible that emphasize overcoming challenges or that renew my mind and spirit when I read them that apply to my situation. And if ever I find myself getting discouraged, I'll go back and like read a verse like that, and it just kind of sets me in the right spot. But again, it's choosing what you're going to focus on, because I've learned what you focus on grows. So why not focus on what's right over what's wrong?
I love it. So there's a lot of great stuff there, but a lot of times people go, okay, I'm going to do, let's say someone does exactly what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Then the challenge becomes the discipline to actually do it.
Yeah.
So how did you turn that into a discipline? Because I think that's where a lot of people fall short. It's like we
Yeah.
know we need to do it, and then we'll even do it for a while. But
Yeah.
then it's that maintenance, not for a week, two, or even a month, but for several months, years.
Yeah, no, I love that. For me, it like in the beginning when I first started to do it, and I've always been more of like an optimistic, upbeat type of person. Again, I have my bad days like most people, right? Where I'm really beating myself up, like we're our own worst critic, right? But what I've learned is that in the beginning, let's say you're constantly bombarded with like negativity and you're having a really frustrating day, right? Something that really puts this in perspective for me, right, is I ask myself this one question, right? I say, in 10 years, am I even going to remember this situation? Is this going to matter? Right? My grandfather, when I was growing up, whenever like I would trip and fall or something like that, he would say something like, "Hey, you'll be fine by the time you're married," right? And I always looked at that and like laughed and didn't really know what he meant. But as I got older, I fully understand that one of the number one killers in business and entrepreneurship is stress, right? That causes a lot of health related issues, everything like that. My dad passed away from a heart attack way sooner than he actually should have, but it's because he let a lot of the little things get to him, which deteriorated his health over time and ultimately caused him to end his time here early, right? So um, even before me going through that experience, even before I just had a baby, and I just had a new baby last year, I've thought to myself, like, I don't want that to happen to me, right? I want to be here for my kids for the long haul. I want to see my kids have kids and so on, right? And I want to, live life to the fullest with them. And the only way I can do that is if I take care of myself. But it all starts with these small daily decisions. And like you said, it's not something that's easy in the beginning. It's a discipline. You have to commit to being positive. You have to commit to choosing the bright side to focus on things, because you're going to be in a situation, some guy's going to cut you off in traffic, and you're going to be like, oh, that idiot, what's going on with him? Blah, 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 blah. It's going to work you up over nothing, right? And so now what I shift my thoughts to, and again, this is an exercise. You have to constantly work at it like anything else, like a muscle you have to build. Someone cuts me off in traffic, I'm not like, oh, this freaking jerk. I'm like, I'm thinking in my mind, maybe that's the tendency, right? At the start, right? But then I calm myself down. I'm like, okay, like, what's going on in this dude's mind or in his life right now where he's acting this way? Because no normal person just treats people like this, right? Because they cut you off, they give you the finger or whatever, right? I start thinking to myself, like, what's that guy going through in his life, right? And so you shift your focus to that. Even when people are rude to me, or when I was cold calling, like, people would curse me out, right? I would think to myself, like, man, like, what's going on in this person's life that's so awful that they're treating a total stranger like this? And it just really shifts your perspective to where you're like, you're not getting upset with them, but you're more so feeling sorry for them.
So that's a great question. I like the way you phrase it. Like, what is going on that they would treat a stranger that way?
Mm-hmm.
Because when we walk down, I mean, we're around strangers all the time. I mean, like, you go to a shopping mall, right? And you're
Yeah,
surrounded by strangers, but it's not like you're walking around being rude to everybody,
exactly. Yep.
right?
Yeah. You're just walking by somebody. If you're walking by someone and someone bumps into you and like curses at you, it's totally their fault, right? But that's how they're choosing to act. Like, naturally we want to react. We want to jump down their throat and be like, what's the matter with you? What's the matter with me? You ever come right? But really what we should be doing is thinking, man, what's that guy going through right now? What's going on in his mind right now where he's treating total strangers like this? Right. And then just pray for him. Feel sorry for him and pray for him. That's all you can do.
No, for sure. And you talked about, there's usually some level of stress, right, involved,
Mm-hmm.
some kind of stressor. And, stress is, if you're in real estate for any length of time, you've dealt with stress.
Oh yeah, it's no
And then,
stranger.
when you're dealing with capital, there's no doubt stress,
Mm-hmm.
and it's funny because some of the wholesaling guys I know locally, I'm thinking of a good friend of mine right now. Anytime he's like, man, when money's involved, people just become weird people. They just do funny things. And it's
100%.
because of the stress that comes with that. So when you're dealing with deals where whether you're wholesaling it, rental, whatever the case, and you're dealing with another party, and you can sense the stress, it's usually not hidden, right? It's
Yeah.
usually
Mm-hmm.
in full display oftentimes.
Yeah.
How do you help bring people back to a position of certainty and away from a position of stress so that they can have confidence in the deal? Whether it's
Yeah.
seller, buyer, doesn't matter.
Yeah. So what we have to remember is when people are stressed or where they're doing something, like, let's just give an example of the wholesaling world. Like, let's say a buyer says, um, I'm not going to close on this deal, or they freak out about your assignment fee being higher. They see the pre-HUD, right? So the receipt from the draft receipt from the transaction showing what you're potentially going to make as a wholesaler, right? The buyer's totally fine, mellow up until that point. He gets that. He sees you're making $25,000, and then he threatens not to close at that point, right? And he's freaking out, yelling at you, saying you're never going to pull one over on him again, and blah, 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 blah. And unless we reduce our price, he's not going to close, all these things, right? So first thing that you want to do is you want the way to bring them back down is ask them, hey, it seems like, I'm a little confused. It seems like how much we're making here is a big concern for you. Can you tell me more about that? Like why that's even an issue? And eventually what you'll find that this person has a victim mentality, right? You'll find that, maybe on his last 3 flips he was lucky to clear $10,000, right? Meanwhile, the last 3 flips he did, the wholesalers made $15,000, $10,000, $20,000, whatever. And it's been a thing for him. He's like, I have to renovate these properties for 90 days. And this guy did nothing, quote unquote, and sold me his contract and made more money than I'm going to make renovating this thing, right? And he gets upset. But as a wholesaler, what you have to do is, and this is something that I really focused on my journey, because I was getting too stressed out in wholesaling in the beginning. I was caring about way too much, right? And so I became more stoic in what I mean by that is, if a buyer would flip out at me like that, what I do is I bring it down to what we agreed upon, right? I try to troubleshoot to talk them off the ledge there a little bit, but if I can, I'd be like, hey, listen, I totally get that you don't want to move forward. Sorry to hear that, right? We were really looking forward to getting this deal done with you. But if that's a direction you want to go, just know that your deposit is non-refundable, right? And because we only want to work with buyers who are serious and reliable, right? We've built a business around that over the last 10 years. What we're going to have to do also is remove you from our list. We'll never do deals again, and we're just going to have to go our separate ways. So if that's the direction you want to go, that's totally fine. I don't want to go that direction. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. We'll collect your deposit, and that's it. What would you like to do? And usually what they do is they try to turn it around. They'll try and beat you up on the price. You just tell them, listen, we both agreed. This is an agreement. You agreed to buy. We agreed to sell. And we are where we are. We can't change the price. What would you like to do? Right? And then they'll kick and scream a little bit. Then they get on board and they move forward. I've only had, in my entire time of doing this, entire 12 years of wholesale, right? I think I've only had 5 situations where buyers walked away from a deposit because they were just so twisted about what we were making, or their own victim mentality, or just whatever the case was. But I've only had 5 situations where that's happened. Everybody else in the situations that have come up, we have been able to get them back on board. And for those of you listening who are like, what the heck is a wholesaler, right? Because I know this is an entrepreneur podcast. So what a wholesaler does, the wholesaler is like a glorified matchmaker for real estate, right? We find the worst house in the best neighborhood. We strike a price with the seller. We get that property under contract with what's called a purchase agreement. And let's give an example. Let's say our purchase agreement is for $115,000. And let's say, we do that because we know we have a buyer that's willing to pay $130,000 for that property. What we do simply is take our purchase agreement, we sell that agreement to a buyer with another piece of paper called an assignment of contract. He takes our spot in that agreement with the seller and pays us the difference between the seller's price and the buyer's price. So we walk away at $15,000. Typically takes 2 to 4 weeks to get that done. You could do it from anywhere in the country.
No, I love it.
That's how we do it.
Well, you said something that really resonated, because I have done a lot of remodeling. I used to wholesale a lot, but now I've done a lot of remodeling. I've done a lot of new construction, dealt with the rentals, short-term, long-term. But that's absolutely true, right? The buyer's taking on all this risk, and maybe the last 2 or 3 deals or 4 or whatever didn't work out. That's not an uncommon story, by the way. Someone tries to do 2, 3, 4 deals and it doesn't work out great.
Yeah.
But they're not a quitter, right? They keep moving.
Yep.
But now they've developed a little bit of a bad taste for the wholesalers.
Yeah.
By the way, if you ever run across those, call me. I'll coach them. I'll help them with that. But I'll help them get over that. But that's so true. Is they have, because I've had a couple of deals that didn't go great. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, I hate this, I hate that. And then you realize, well, no, that's just, you have to get better.
Exactly. What can I do to improve? See, a lot of buyers don't realize that a wholesaler's risk is front loaded, right? And a buyer's risk is post sale, right? Meaning wholesalers typically, when you get beyond doing a deal occasionally, when you get beyond doing a deal occasionally, what happens is that you start to invest in marketing, right? And with any type of investment, there's usually a level of risk involved. We've had marketing campaigns that haven't panned out before. We've invested tens of thousands of dollars in doing that, realizing we didn't put the phone number on the postcard we sent out, and we just wasted all that money, right? So we've had that. And then buyers, their risk is post-sale, right? So they buy the property and they're putting their money in fixing the property, hoping they're going to be able to sell it for what they want and sell the deal, right? But a lot of buyers, their perspective is all wholesalers do is we sit on the beach all day with a pina colada in our hands, sitting in a recliner chair with an umbrella over us, and we just have all this amazing opportunity come to us, and we don't have to do anything for it, which is totally false, right? We're there being the psychologists for a lot of these sellers who get really emotional, and buyers, they don't want to deal with that stuff. So buyers are in a construction business, wholesalers are in sales and marketing, and it takes a lot of work to get these deals to the table. So a buyer can just come in and say, thank you, I'll buy it off a silver platter for you, and then move on, right? And so I tell buyers, like, if you don't like our spreads, then maybe you should market for your own deals. Give them a taste of what that's like, and then they're going to come back and say, it's much easier to buy from you.
Oh, it's definitely easier. And a lot of times years ago, and I don't know what the latest is, but years ago, wholesalers, that's what you saw a lot, right? And a lot of the trainings was
Yeah.
the beach, the plane, the car, right? Like all that. And then most people get into it and realize, oh, no, that does not just happen. But
Yeah.
let's talk about marketing for a minute.
Sure.
Because you're teaching virtual wholesaling now. And marketing cost is a big issue in the wholesaling space, especially these past 2 or 3 years in particular, where interest rates have gone up. Prices have held relatively strong, if not very strong, depending on the market, although some areas have dropped a decent bit. But the reality is sellers as a whole, even in the markets that have dropped a bit, the values of even those properties is still a lot stronger than it was a short few years ago, even if it's dropped a good bit. And so it's hard to get sellers, at least that's the perception, right, to come to a good price. But then so people are very hesitant to spend thousands and thousands on marketing with no return. Okay, this is a serious concern for a lot of people. You're pitching $1,000 a month. We're going to get it done.
Yeah.
What's that formula look like for you that you can pull that off consistently? Because you're obviously having great success with it.
Yeah, great question. So when anybody who's brand new to wholesaling, by the way, wholesaling is the best way to get started in real estate, because you're not physically buying these properties yourself, not involving your own income. You're not, getting loans from the bank. You're simply putting a piece of paper in place and selling that piece of paper to a buyer for a profit. That's it, right? You're not risking your own money when it comes to wholesaling the actual deal itself, right? Now, it does take some marketing to get traction, to have some leads start coming in, so you can start getting these great deals and you can start selling those and making money, right? So let's talk about the marketing. So when a new wholesaler comes to me and they're just getting started in the business, hands down, what I always recommend them to start with is cold calling. The reason why I recommend cold calling is it is the fastest way to be in instant contact with sellers. There's no waiting. There's no, spending a bunch of money up front on a bunch of mailers and sending them out and crossing your fingers and waiting for people to call you. You can literally pick up your phone, click start on a dialer, and be instantly in contact with sellers and having conversations. And as a brand new wholesaler, you want to get as many of those conversations out of the way as quickly as possible. So what I've found is that a lot of people don't like cold calling, but that's okay. But the reason they need to do cold calling, even if they don't like it, even if they feel like they're going to suck at it, it's okay, because everybody that starts picking up the phone in the beginning sucks on the phone. Like, nobody is good on the phone when they first start, right? I wasn't. I had a sales background. So, but the thing is 90 days of cold calling will give you a 10-year education in sales and marketing. And if you can get deals under contract with cold calling, you're going to have the skills necessary to make greater investments in marketing and have confidence in the return you're going to get from that, because you've used free or near free methods to get deals. Then the great part about that is you can take, once you get deals yourself, you can reinvest 20% of what you make into having someone else make those calls for you. So now they're generating the leads. You're just picking up the phone, talking with the sellers, and then growing your deal volume from there. And that's what's worked really well for us.
So when someone's spending $1,000, then what are they effectively paying for?
Yeah. So typically what people are paying for is they're paying for a dialer, right? Dialer is roughly around $139 a month, right? The dialer we recommend, and I can give you a link for the show here, is a batch dialer. You can get 50% off in your first month. And basically, the reason I like it is because it's simple. There's a lot of really complicated dialers out there. And if you don't know what a dialer is, it just simply is a piece of software that allows you to dial multiple phone numbers at the exact same time. So you're not spending a lot of time hand dialing each one. You're literally logging in, clicking start. And as soon as the dialer dials a bunch of numbers and connects you with someone, it puts you through. It's a lot faster to go through lists that way, right? So we recommend they get a dialer first. The next thing we recommend is they get access to some type of software that allows them to pull lists and get phone numbers for sellers. We like batch leads for that because they offer free skip tracing, which is just finding the phone numbers for properties. And from there, we download our list, upload them to the dialer, right? And then from there, outside of that, that gives you enough to get your first deal under contract, those two pieces of software right there. And then to grow that to that $1,000 a month we were talking about, that's when you hire a cold caller, have them replace you, and they're making calls, and possibly a second one, just depending on where your budget is at that time. But that's roughly what you're using for that $1,000 a month. But when most people start, they usually have like $500 or less to get started. And then cold calling sets the tone and the pace for that, gets them to their first deal. And then from there, they start to grow into that budget.
Mm-hmm. So this highlights a key thing, and that's this idea of wholesaling is effectively sales and marketing, which is true, right? It's not really real estate. I mean, it is, but lightly, right? It's definitely more sales and marketing than it is real estate. But far too many times, when people want to get into this type of work, what do they say? Well, I hate marketing. And they're probably right? Or I hate sales, right?
Yeah.
Sales is taboo, right? Has the stigma. Everyone thinks the used car salesman, like that's the default stereotype. Marketing is like, ooh, what's that, right? Like, just how do you help people when someone comes to you, because it's a mindset thing, right? They're like, I want to learn real estate. I saw the glitz, the glitter, the rewards. But there's a lot of learning sales and marketing is a lot of work. It's like any other, I mean, it's like a career path, really, when it comes down to it. It's a career path to do sales and marketing. How do you get someone that thought they were getting excited about real estate, because that's what they're excited about, to understand really this is a sales and marketing gig, not a real estate gig, which is, that's a business paradigm shift.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, I have a lot of people that come to me. Actually, the majority of people that come to me for coaching when it comes to virtual wholesaling and getting into real estate, they are not comfortable on the phone. They'll come to me and flat out tell me, I hate cold calling. I'm deathly afraid of the phone, things like that. And then what we do is we go to work on their mindset, because like you said, mindset plays a big part in it. And I tell all my coaching clients, success in real estate is 80 to 90% mindset and 10 to 20% education, right? What I mean by that is if you're not right up here, then nothing out here is going to be right? So you're not going to get deals. So the first thing I do is I go to work on their mindset, and we go to knocking out some of the most common fears that people have. Because someone's saying they don't like cold calling, they don't like talking on the phone, they don't like marketing, all comes from a bad experience. We all make these decisions based on, they're all rooted in past decisions that we've made. And good or bad, right? Everything that we say we like or don't like, it all is rooted in a decision we made that either went a good way or it went a bad way, right? So what I want to uncover first is what that was. So I'm digging down deep and asking questions around that. Like, have you had a bad experience with cold calling before? Tell me about that. What happened? And then they'll usually share with me like, yeah, last time I cold called, like this guy, cursed me out over the phone, hung up on me, and that was it for me, right? So at that point, I basically tell him, I say, okay, and did you die? Well, no, he was just really rude. Okay. So, there's going to be rude people in the world, right? Next, focus on the next person. And then I have some people say, well, Chris, what if I mess up on the call, right? What if they know that I'm new? So I tell these people, like, look, it doesn't even matter if you mess up on the call, right? Like, you're never going to see these people ever again. You're not going to be in the grocery stores, picking out tomatoes or oranges, and the person next to you is like, hey, you're that person that messed up on that cold call, right? It's not going to happen, right? So, so like, who cares if you mess up? You're never going to see these people again anyways. Does not even matter. Just on to the next call, right? And then if you have a fear of the phone, like, it's really about like, what's that fear behind? Some people have a fear that, wholesaling to make money, it greatly depends on you being able to find a buyer for your properties. Some people have a fear that if I pick up the phone, they don't have a fear of the seller saying no. They have a fear of the seller saying yes. What if the seller says yes and I move forward and then I can't find a buyer for their property? What then, right? So that's why we front load that in our method that we have called our FYBF method. We believe in finding your buyer first, right? So before my clients ever start marketing for sellers, we have them market for buyers using methods we show them how to do, right? A lot of them are free methods, okay? Require $0 out of pocket. And then what they do is they get 25 to 50 buyers on their list to start, and then they start marketing for sellers. And at that point, they have a lot more confidence, and that fear goes away and disappears, because now they're not going to have that fear. Like, what if I can't find a buyer? I already have buyers, right? So now that fear is not there anymore. So it really just comes down to understanding what their biggest fear is, why it's there, what experience drove that, and then what can we put in place to overcome that so you can get to your first deal. I've had people tell me they're deathly afraid of the phone and then close a $27,000 deal, right? But that's because we got to the root of the mindset obstacle they had. We helped them overcome that, and we helped them move forward with confidence.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, and these things that help you move forward with confidence, we can't understate that, right? Which is why the coaching exists, is to help people.
Yeah.
A lot of times that is what coaching is. It's more of helping build confidence back into a situation than the actual mechanics, the vast majority of the time. So when you were saying 80, 20, 90, 10, I'm like, yep, that's about right. Okay. The mechanics is almost always the easy part, right? It's the dealing with the mindset, or maybe a conflicting mindset with another party. That's the real work. And the challenge with that is you might even be in the position of, I want to resolve it, but the other party is not there. And I've seen some crazy stuff where,
oh yeah.
So you were talking about situations where people are deathly afraid. There's a lot of people deathly afraid of confronting something that even has an inkling of potential to be unpleasant.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's
why cold calling is so important, because it front loads a lot of that, right? A lot of those fears, it's going to front load that, so you can get as many conversations out of the way as possible and get more comfortable in those confrontation type situations. And that way, when something does happen that can dramatically impact your bottom line, you'll be able to handle it in a way that you can feel good about.
I always tell people, just embrace the conflict.
Yeah.
Just embrace it. And they're like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. And I'm like, that's exactly why you do it. Because a lot of times that is the fact. I remember a pastor preaching on something like that many, many years ago. And he said, when you see darkness ahead, just run straight through it. It's the fastest way to the light. And I'm like, it's true. right?
Yeah.
The earth still spins the same way every day, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, absolutely. Yeah, and there's also a good book that I recommend for anybody that struggles with conflict and situations like that. There's a book you should read called Crucial Conversations. I can't exactly remember the author's name,
Mm.
but just go on Amazon, Crucial Conversations. That is the best book out there for dealing with confrontation. So if you're a type of person that struggles with that, this is a great book to read and help you with that.
I read that a few years ago. Maybe I should go read it. So I like
it's,
it.
it's great, man.
You
I
know,
go
you're
back to
right.
it
It
all the
was a
time.
good book. It was a
Yeah.
good, right? Because, and it gets to the crux of it. So
Mhm.
speaking of conflict, you've had some challenges, but before we get into those challenges, because they're going to speak to some things, I want to preface it by saying you were a successful business owner before real estate,
Mhm.
in that you did the franchise thing, which is a very viable model that a lot of people clearly have success with.
Yep.
Tell us again what you did with that and what made it so successful.
Yeah. So many, 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 many years ago, uh, I was working for T-Mobile. I was one of those guys in the mall that would call people over. I don't know if anyone, like people are younger listening to this, they may not remember this, but cell phone companies used to have authorized retailers in booths in the mall. And you'd be walking through the mall and they'd have people call you over to get you set up or try to get you to switch cell phone services. That's what I did, right? That helped overcome a lot of fear. Standing in
Yeah,
the middle of
yeah.
the mall, you have people walking by you, and you have to draw all this attention to yourself. That was like a big thing for me to overcome that. It took a lot, but dove in feet first, did it, became comfortable with it, became one of the top salespeople there. And a friend of mine who was also one of the top salespeople there, we said, hey, we're making money, all this money for this company, right? Why don't we go ahead and try and start something on our own and make this money ourselves? So we started a T-Mobile franchise. He started it first, started the company. And then after he had a couple locations, he's like, hey, I'd love to bring you on to what I got going on here, right? So he brought me on
Mhm.
and things were great. We were rocking it out, just destroying it. That was my first real business that I had. I had some smaller stuff before that, like a graphics design company and stuff like that, but nothing really like consistent like this was, right? And so we dove in straight ahead. The one thing that I would tell you though is there are several things that you should look for in partnerships. So, we had a lot of success because he and I both are driver personalities, but number one, we were too much alike, and that was a problem, right? Because A type personality,
Mhm.
you butt heads a lot, right? There has to be an equalizing situation. Like you have to have a person that's an A-type personality, like an alpha and a beta, right? So both people come together, or in the book Traction, it calls it a visionary and a what's that word? A visionary and I can't remember the other integrator. There you go. A
Yeah.
visionary and an
Yeah, yeah,
integrator.
yeah.
So you're both not A-type personalities. One's really good at casting the vision, the massive action, and the other one's really good at saying, okay, let's take that big vision and poke some holes in it, see the areas that could be improved, and let's improve those together, right? The problem is he and I both are visionaries. And so there's a lot of rubbing with us back and forth. And after about a year and a half, the company basically just imploded. I walked away from that and in a way that wasn't really beneficial to me at all. And that's okay though. And I just realized it was over and I just had to move on to a different part of my life. Right. But the biggest thing that I could say is when it comes to partnering, right? You want to uh, take a look at that person's actions before going into business with them, because if they're doing some things that you don't like and you go into business with them, understand that that's probably going to continue. You're not immune to that. I feel like this goes with wholesale deals too. Some people will see a buyer that's out there that's kind of shady. I'm not saying this guy was shady. I'm just saying there were some things that were done that I didn't agree with, but we had to part ways. But you'll see some buyers out there. They'll go around you to sellers and stuff like that, or you hear that they go around this other wholesaler to the seller to try and cut that wholesaler out of the deal. And then
Mhm.
you'll add them to your buyers list. You're like, oh, he did that to him. He's not going to do it to me, right? That's naive. how
Mhm.
if someone's willing to do something to somebody else, they're going to do it to you too. So there were some big red flags that I should have paid attention to, and I made some mistakes too on that journey. But I've learned that my mentor now says, "What never partner when you can hire." So if my wife wasn't my business partner and I wasn't married, then I probably would not partner again. I would run things myself and hire the people that I need.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, just there's times to partner, there's times to hire, there's pros and
Mm-hmm.
cons to both, right? So it's not
Mm-hmm.
one is better or the other. There's people that will say, well, I mean, one of my coaches actually was like, he's made a killing through partnerships, and
Mm-hmm.
that's how he got wildly successful when he started. But then
Yeah.
another gentleman we both know it doesn't really like partnerships much at all, right?
Yeah.
So it's they're both right in their own sense. It's just
Mm-hmm.
what works for you for what it is you're trying to accomplish. And one of the things that I've learned is partnerships can be super powerful, but at the same time, when they go south, man, they can go south.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
And
it goes back to
so,
what we were talking about before about how all of our decisions that we make are rooted in past experiences. My past experience wasn't a very good experience, and so that's where my decision comes, where my point of view comes on that now. But there's also been people, like you said, who have had wild success with partnerships, and they swear by them, right? So every decision we make is rooted in a past experience.
yeah, and I've had the luxury of experiencing both,
Mm-hmm.
where we've had some partnership deals that went great, and then some of them were like, all of a sudden your partner becomes, it's like they become this weird alien you don't recognize. You're like, who are you? Like,
Yeah.
I need the past version. I don't know what this is now. But
Mm-hmm.
this is why we need coaching, right? We need that business coaching to help us become better at discerning these decisions that need to be made in consulting. When you were that franchise owner, like it sounds like during that time you guys were rocking and then the thing imploded as you said. So I'm guessing there wasn't coaching. At what point in the journey
Mm-hmm.
of business did you realize, we should get a coach?
Yeah. So after that experience, I was like, I need guidance because I'm not a very good business owner, right? I let things get in the way emotionally, and just some of the decisions I look back on and made, like it's newbie type stuff, you know? And so I said that if I was ever going to go into business with someone ever again, or if I was going to start something big like that again that required a lot of my time or a lot of my income, I was going to get the proper guidance so I would know how to navigate those situations. Coaches help with two things, and this is the reason why people come to me for real estate coaching, is that coaching comes down to confidence and clarity, right? So we talked about the importance of confidence before, right? That's the reason why people hire coaches. That's the reason why people hire you as a coach, is because they want confidence and clarity around whatever it is that they want to do, right? They can get information on YouTube. They can find out how to do deals on YouTube, right? But to get the confidence that they can do deals just like the guy on YouTube, and get the clarity of organizing all the steps in the order they need to do to get the end result that the guy on YouTube got, right? That's why people hire coaches.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure, for sure. Now, how do you go about finding a good coach? And this is important because today we live in a world, and I even saw that, was it? It's almost Halloween at the time of this recording, and I saw the meme. I think it was on Facebook. I don't remember the exact word, but it was like the one deal real estate coach or something like that. I don't know, whatever it was. But the whole idea is there are a lot of people that will do a deal or two, and all of a sudden they're coaching.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is it doesn't matter how good it was, they don't have the track record. I'm
100%.
of the firm belief of if you're going to coach and truly be effective, you need to have had the success, sure, right? But you also
Mm-hmm.
need to have seen the valley.
Yep.
Because if you haven't lived through the valley, how are you going to help someone else when they get in a valley? Because they're going to, I assure you, everyone gets in this business will find the valley.
Yep.
It's just a matter of time.
No,
So they
100%.
got to know the high. They got to know how do you encourage people to understand, or even how you talk to them to understand, hey, I know what good looks like, but by the way, I also know what really bad looks like, but I also know how to recover from bad.
Yeah. So how to identify a good coach?
Basically, that has
Yeah.
that kind of experience, so that they're not getting the one track, the
Hmm.
the one hit wonder, two hit wonder person, because there's
Yeah.
a lot of that. And now a lot of people are weary, right? They're like, I want to hire a coach, but
Yeah.
they'll pay some guy 5,000, 10, 20, whatever, and they don't get what they pay for.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great question. What I typically find is it's important when you're hiring a coach that you do some due diligence, right? Maybe Google the person, see what comes up, right? Maybe check out some of their reviews or testimonials they have that can share other people's experience with it, right? And the other part of that is you not only want to take a look at what they've done, right? But you want to look at how they're living. There's a lot of coaches out there that are making fantastic money, right? Back when I first got started in real estate, right? There was a lot of coaches that I saw making millions of dollars, the Rolls Royces, the jets, all that stuff. They were doing real estate, but I would never want them to be my coach because their life outside of that was falling apart, right? And so, where I think it's really important is you want to find a coach that's well-rounded, someone that's not just super successful financially, but also has a good family. They have good morals. You can pay attention to what they post, and you can see if you can really like resonate with this person. And if you resonate with that person, you've done research, you can see that they have some positive reviews out there. They have a lot of testimonials they can share with you. Then chances are it's okay to take next steps. Where I find that people make mistakes is when people will just find some random person in a Facebook group that says, I'll coach you to your first deal for $1,500 or for $500, right? They have no idea who this person is. They probably live out of the country. And that person takes them for that money, gives them nothing, and that's it, right? And then I've had other people that have paid $60,000, $100,000 to these other real estate companies. They come to me and they're like, Chris, I haven't gotten a deal yet. And they share that embarrassingly. But the truth is, it's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's happened to me before, right? But the reason is maybe they just don't identify with how that person teaches. Back in school, right? When we were sitting in a classroom, we've all had teachers we've really liked, and we thrived in those classes. We were really good, right? Like we'd get an A in that class, right? And then we also had the classes where we're like, I can't stand this class. Interesting information, but the teacher was boring or organized the information terribly, so we couldn't get the result, right? So I find that there's a lot that goes on there, and that's where again looking the person up, checking out the reviews, things like that is really important, because I found that when you can simplify something, anybody can get results.
I love that. Simplification.
Oh yeah.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal. And when you're looking for people, yeah, keep it simple, right? No,
Keep it
absolutely.
simple.
Keep it simple, and don't underestimate, I'd even throw in, don't underestimate your gut. One of the things I've
100%.
learned, and curious to your thoughts on how you deal with this in business. Sometimes we
Mm-hmm.
come across people that are good at what they do,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not a good fit for us. And
Yeah.
a lot of times, and we'll see where, well, such and such, I don't think they're very good. When in reality, they're actually really good. They're just not good for you.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is not every, and I deal a lot with construction. This happens with contractors all the time, where you'll come across contractors very good at what they do, but their personalities, this is not
Yeah.
kind of like going back to when you were that franchisee owner. It's like you both might have been great people at the time, but it didn't matter. You're going to butt heads, right? Sometimes,
100%.
sometimes the personality match is just not the best for the task at hand.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so how did you learn about identifying personalities to ensure you're working with people that are a good fit, whether it's a coach, maybe it's a buyer, a seller, a separate business transaction, whatever?
Yeah. So this is so good. and I love this topic. You know, what I found is that, and you touched on it before, listening to my gut. No matter how much training or experience you have, we all get a certain feeling around certain people. Some people make us feel really good. And there's some people where just like, I can't put my finger on it, but there's something off here. I cannot emphasize the importance of listening to that voice, because I ignored it when I first got started, because I was like, well, I'm brand new. So what do I know? Right. Maybe I just don't have all the facts. Right. This guy's obviously successful, so I'm just going to go with him. Right. So, and that led to some bad experiences for me. Right. So anytime in real estate, what I found, the times that I've gone against my gut, I've bought a property that my gut said, don't do it. Right. I've entered a buyer relationship where I was like, something's off about this guy and I really don't like him, but I don't know why. I mean, he hasn't done anything to me, but there's just a reason why I don't like him. Right. Anytime I've gone into those situations, it's always, I would say 99.9% of the time, it's turned out bad. Right. Because of not listening to my gut. Like there's this inner thing inside of you, right? Like we have to build this trust with ourselves where we can say, hey, we're worthy to listen to. Doesn't matter if we are brand new, we have all this experience, and and we don't have this experience, and this other person has more experience than we could ever have, right? And has what we want. If there's something that just doesn't jive, we got to listen to it, because it's telling you that for a reason. And if you listen to it, you'll be in a much better position.
It kind of gets into that idea of you've got to be your own biggest fan and be comfortable with that. Because if you're not your own biggest fan, why would anyone be your biggest fan? And in order to listen to your gut, you do have to have that belief in yourself.
Have to.
You do. Now that's a really good word. So I wanted to ask you, so shifting gears just a little bit. You got, and this kind of piggybacks off what we were just talking about. You've been involved now with some syndications in the multifamily space. Now, this very much ties into what we were just saying, because you meet investors that say, I want passive income. So they go buy rental houses, which if you've owned any kind of rental single family, the whole passive income thing is nonsense. That is not 100% passive.
Yeah, nothing's truly passive.
That was a good marketing line a decade ago, but that is not true. But with syndications, you do have the opportunity to be that investor that's truly hands-off.
Yeah.
And you don't have to literally do anything once you invest. However, that is still not 100% true. It's still just closer. Because as the person investing, you now have to vet the syndicator.
Yeah.
And so now you're usually talking equal, if not larger sums of money. And you're totally trusting a person to be a good operator, not just of one house, but of some kind of complex. Maybe it's small multifamily, right? 10, 20 units. Maybe it's apartment complex with hundreds, if not thousands. Whatever the case, I now have to vet this person or this team of people, which is sometimes is even more frightening, that they're going to be a good operator. So now this idea of vetting that person is paramount. What has your experience been with this, walking that road?
Yeah, so this is a perfect segue from that whole listening to your gut conversation, because that really ties into here. So I'm less concerned with what people say, and I'm more concerned with what people do. My mom always said growing up, actions speak louder than words, right? So when I'm looking at investing money with somebody, and large sums of money, like when I'm looking at, or really any amount of money, doesn't matter, right? I pay attention to what they do. I don't really listen to what they say. And so if I can tell someone is just like and we all make mistakes, right? Let's just be honest. Like we're human. We're all going to make mistakes, right? But the overwhelming majority of things that we do should be morally good, right? Like the overwhelming majority should be that if you're going to be investing with somebody, right? So I pay attention to like what people post on Facebook. I pay attention to like what they're doing in their own business. I pay attention to what people have said about their experience in investing money with this person. I pay attention to like things like how long I've known this person, right? What have I known them to be? Have I known them to be consistent? Or are they constantly opportunity hopping from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing to thing, right? So I'm looking for, whenever I invest money, I'm looking for reliability and consistency, right? And then obviously a good moral compass, right? Because here's the thing, anybody can do the right thing when the situation is good, right? When the market's good, money's flowing, opportunity is endless, it seems like, right? Anybody can make a morally good decision at that point, right? But it's when things hit the fan that people's true character comes out. And what I've really paid attention to is I've paid attention to what people do, how they act when they're struggling, because that's how their real character comes out. So if someone is not ethical when things are bad, they're not going to be ethical when things are good, right? And so the people that I've invested our income with when it comes to the syndications, they've done a lot of deals. I've known this person for probably 7 years or so, and he's always been very consistent in business. He has a family. He's doing out things to help other people, and they have like around 1,000 units in the area that we were investing in, and they've been doing this for probably the last 5 years or so. And so I've just seen that consistency there. I've never seen this person make a decision that I was like, like that's morally off, right? And really, this guy is way smarter than I am when it comes to this stuff. And so I just let go of the need to be the guy. Early in my journey, I had the need to be the guy. I needed to be the one that found the deal. I needed to be the one that bought it. It needed to be my money, right? Didn't want to involve anybody else. And it could have been rooted in those past experiences, right? Or it could be an ego, who knows, right? But what I've started to do is I started to say, look, I don't need to be the guy that finds the property, right? My main focus is our real estate business that we have. It's coaching. And I'm totally okay if someone wants to bring me an opportunity, I'll review it. We'll invest our money if it makes sense. And then they can do all the work basically. And then I'm just going to watch the numbers and that's it. And I'm totally okay with that.
Love it. Love it. Love it. So let me ask you one more question and kind of piggybacking off of that.
Mm-hmm.
What's a belief that you held strongly in business in the past that you've since changed your mind on?
That's good. So what's a belief that I held to as a truth in business and in the past that changed my mind on, or changed my mind since the past?
That you've changed your mind since on.
Well, like you said, this is a great piggyback, is that I need to do everything in my business. I'm the one that needs to do everything. Like if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself, right? That's what I was taught growing up. And that's always been my mentality. And that mentality works until a certain level of income in business. But if you try to push past that certain level of income to grow, the wheels are going to fall off the wagon. You're going to get burnt out and probably pass out from being exhausted, right? All of which I've done, by the way. So what I've found is that having other people help you in business is a very, very good thing. There's nothing wrong with saying this person knows more than me. They're better at me than this thing, and they enjoy it way more than I do. So I'm just going to partner with them, or I'm going like joint venture with them, or I'm going to invest my money with them. I'm going to hire them, because it's only when a leader is ready to do that, it's when they truly become a leader and can lead people well. You have to understand that you should not be the best person. Like you should be good at leading people and developing people, but you don't have to be the best person at everything. Right? Because there's other people that are way better than you out there that are waiting to work with you and make your life easier.
Absolutely. And we just got to align ourselves with those right alliances and changes the game. Well, Chris, this
100%.
has been super super cool to get these perspectives that we don't always talk a lot about, because I know we go into a lot of real estate things. So it's about the deal. Then I was like, you know what? We've talked about the deal enough. Let's talk about the people part of it, because it's such a key part in real estate, such a real estate oriented
100%.
business. So I love a lot of the insights you shared. It's great. So to all our listeners, if you want to connect with Chris, I mean, if you're looking for a coach, he might be a great coach for you. Reach out to him. If you want to do business with him, he's doing deals. He's doing it virtually. So depending on where you are, probably doesn't matter where you are. That's why it's virtual. So reach out to him and connect with him, because it could be a great person to do business with. So those links will be below in the description. And so, Chris, I want to thank you again for being on the show with us today. Can you leave us with a final word?
Yeah. So thanks, Frank. And again, this has been a blast. Had a lot of fun. This has probably been one of the funnest podcasts that I've been on. And so I
Well,
appreciate
thank
the
you.
thought-provoking questions. Yeah. And really just sharpening iron here. Yeah, the biggest thing I can tell you guys is, you know, there's a saying that says the best time to get in real estate was yesterday. The second best time to get into real estate is today. Don't keep putting it off. Take massive, imperfect, immediate action. Don't be afraid to hire a coach to fill the gaps between what you think you know and what you need to know to get the end result you're looking for. And from there, you can take steps towards creating the life that you've always dreamed of. It's been a blast. Had fun, guys.
I love it. I love it. Well, I look forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you, Chris.
Yep. Thanks, Frank.